yet another special and live immigration show on Sakshi TV. Welcome, viewers. On a sad note, we have this new proclamation: suspension of H-1B, L, and related visas, including J1 and H-2B, which is not a big effect to the Indian community. Uh, then we have had a lot of chaos. Looks like, is this the beginning of the end of the dollar dream? Or this is going to end in about 6 months when everything is going to come back into what it was 3 or 4 months ago, pre-COVID, before we've had the COVID-19, which has hit massively, which started in, we all know, we started in Wuhan, China. Now the decisions are being made in Washington, D.C. So we have arranged this special show with me, Dan, to talk to experts today and understand the suspension of entry of various aliens, once again, including H-1Bs, their dependents, L1s and J1s, and H-2B workers. Now, what is it in store for us? There has been a lot of chaos, a lot of messages on groups. It's just chaotic out there. Is this a permanent end? We have the numbers flashing on the screen, and I'd like to get two experts on the discussion panel today. To begin with, we will be welcoming Ms. Prasanthi Reddy from the Law Offices of Prasanthi Reddy. She's our house attorney on Sakshi TV. We have a weekly show every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Now, we wanted to talk to her. It's been about 24 hours since the news finally bursted. We've had the issue last 1 week. We've been talking about over a week now. There have been rumors. They said credible rumors. Both the sessions last 2 weeks, we've had discussions, and thank you those callers. You've called and asked numerous questions. But then let's jump into. We'll try to get Prasanthi Reddy first, and then in about 20 minutes, we also requested a prominent NRI industry expert, and also the current Andhra Pradesh State Special Representative to North America, Mr. Ratnakar Pandagaila. He should be, he's a little busy now. He said he would join the session in about 20 minutes. We'll try to discuss the legal aspects of the proclamation. I see that it's almost 6 pages, so it's pretty confusing for us. So we definitely need, which started on the April 22nd, the proclamation number 10014. So let's try to welcome Prasanthi Reddy. And look at the numbers on the screen. We have listed numbers for people who are stranded in India, who may have their visas expired, and people who are in the US. What is the situation for aspirants in the US who have filed the cap subject petitions, who otherwise may not be eligible for a change of status? If the consulates are closed, the bills are closed, everything is closed until December 2020, and without a guarantee that this is going to extend. So, Prasanthi, can you hear me? Are you on the session?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. So what's going on? We've spoken about this last 2 sessions, and we spoke about the credible rumors, and now the rumor has become reality. And the 10014, the proclamation, which has been in effect for, I think we spoke about this, the 212F, there have been a lot of questions. Now, first, I would like to ask you, what is your take on the entire 6-page, this whole, French, which, people are trying to understand what's the outcome of this bill, not the bill, but the president's executive order. What is your take on this?
So basically, just to go through what's happening. First thing is they've extended the previous 10014 order. That's the first thing they've done. They've extended it to December 31st, 2020. So that's the first aspect that they've covered. Then they're basically saying that suspension and limitation of entry for H1s, H1Bs, H2Bs, Js, Ls, and their dependents, anyone who is their dependent. So this pretty much is for people who are outside the country and they do not have a valid non-immigrant visa right now. So if you are stuck outside the country, but you already have a valid visa and you're not able to come, because flights are closed or whatever, you can still come in. It's only if your visa has expired or you're applying for a new visa because it's the first time you're coming into the US, then, unfortunately, you will not be able to come in until after December 31st. So if you're outside the country and you do not have a non-immigrant valid visa right now, and you do not have any kind of a travel document or advance parole document, a lot of H1s travel on advance parole because they also have 485 spending. So if you have an advance parole, you can come back in. If you're a lawful permanent resident, you can come back in. If you are a spouse or child of a United States citizen, it doesn't apply to you. The last exception is that if the Secretary of State decides that your entry into the United States is of national interest, then it will not apply to you. But otherwise, it will.
Okay, but then this is still myself after reading the 6-page proclamation press release from the White House website. I'm still not clear. But then before we get into the details of this executive order, we have a caller, Abhishek from New Jersey. Abhishek, you're on the air.
Yeah, so I had a question. So I am on green card EAD. I do not have any visa. So I've been maxed out on my L1A visa, but I have a valid EAD and an advance parole. And for a family emergency, I will have to travel to India. So I wanted to understand if this proclamation will impact me. Can I come back? And I'm planning to travel alone. My family will still stay in US.
Right. So as I was just saying, you fall under one of the exceptions, which is pretty much you have a valid advance parole. As long as your advance parole has not expired and you do not let it expire, and you travel, you go and come back before expiry of your advance parole, you should be fine.
Okay.
So you're an exception. But that opens up another question, Prasanthi, now. When they travel back on the advance parole or the travel document, I'm assuming it's I-131, they're subject to inspection at the port of entry. It's not just like with a green card or something you just pass through, but then they were usually they were taken into a room. They are subject to additional inspection. Now, how safe is it for somebody like Abhishek to travel and attempt to return when there is a problem? When there's a problem,
he's obviously saying you have to wait. I don't see an issue for people to travel. I mean, obviously there's an issue with flights, and it's not safe to travel because of COVID. So you should avoid that for that reason. And there are uncertainties where immigration is concerned. But if they have clearly said that people with a valid advance parole can travel, then we take their word for it, because if they say that it can be done, it can be done. There's no reason for us to second guess that. There is no secondary inspection for people who come with an advance parole or permanent residence or H-1B. So there's not necessary that every time there's secondary inspection. Sometimes there might be, if there are some questions. So as long as you have a valid visa, valid status, I don't see an issue with traveling other than health concerns.
okay. But then you do you suggest people traveling unless there's an emergency?
Yeah, I wouldn't travel for leisure at this point in time.
Okay. Before we continue this discussion, we have another caller. Shravani, you're on the air. Please ask your question.
Hello. Hi. Good afternoon. Hi. Good afternoon.
Hi. Good afternoon. How you doing?
Thank you for taking. I'm calling from Toronto, Canada. I'm calling from Toronto, Canada. So I have a situation like I have my H-1B visa approved for 10 years for 3 years till 2023 March. but due to the corona situation, I couldn't get it stamped. So I just wanted to check if the consulate opens, can I still be able to stamp my H-1B visa and then get into US, or that's not a possibility this year?
That's a good question.
So, if you're out of the country, it applies exactly to you. If you're out of the country and you don't have a visa, valid visa, and you need to go to the consulate and get a visa, they're not going to give it to you until December 30th. So, no, you have to wait until the proclamation or the executive order, the time passes before you can actually go get a visa at this point.
Okay. Now, Prasanthi, can someone challenge this proclamation in the court of law? Is that a possibility?
Yes, absolutely, and they might,
like
because
the commander-in-chief has made an executive order. There is no reversal, but most of these candidates, aspirants, they are stuck outside the country. So how can they? Either it could be their employer, or they hire an attorney like you to file a lawsuit. But is that a possibility? But this is in the interest of the detrimental effects of U.S. labor market. That's what it says. So do you think that's a possibility?
Absolutely. Any executive order can be challenged. Any regulation can be challenged in the court of law. So I suspect, that the executive order hasn't started as yet, starting on 24th at 12 a.m. So as soon as it does, I'm sure there will be legal challenges. Even the previous executive order was challenged, by the way, in Ohio, I think, in a federal court. But the court decided to not strike it down because it was narrow in its scope at that point. Now in the previous executive order, they've increased it until December 30th, so it no longer remains narrow. So it's important to see, when you see if the executive order will be successful in court or not, you have to look at the scope of the executive order. Is it narrowly defined? Is it required right now for the national interest of the United States? Is it justified? Is it narrowly defined where duration is concerned? So if you look at the executive order now with reference to work visas, whenever they give an economic justification, it doesn't hold good in court as much as a health concern would hold good. So he clearly said it's an economic concern.
Right.
So if you say it's an economic concern, then you have to look at the industries that are affected by this executive order, and it's pretty much, we all know, the tech industry that is affected, because 80% of the H-1 visas are used by tech companies. And as you know, there is no recession in the tech industry. There is absolutely no recession in the tech industry. And as we know, figures that have been given to us by the government itself, they say that it's 2% unemployment in March, 3% in March and 2% in April. So unemployment actually went down in the tech industry. So I'm not sure on what basis this executive order can be justified in court. So that's a very strong, I think, for a person a litigant who filed, I think it's a very strong reasoning. Because
I do have to speak with you discuss about the dilution. I'll get there, but then I have the caller from Canada once again. Shravan, you're back on the air. Please continue with your question about your stamp.
Sorry, I thought I got disconnected. So actually, I have the same question. I'm not sure if I understood that. Like, my H-1B is approved, but stamping of H-1B is not done. So when the consulate opens up in Canada, can I get my H-1 stamped and then go back to US, or I cannot do that at all? Because I read the proclamation, it says that...
Yeah. You cannot do that until December 31st. We understood your question, and the answer is you cannot do it until December 31st because it applies to exactly you. If you do not have a valid visa as of now, it applies to anybody who does not have a valid visa as of the date of the proclamation. So you will not be able to apply for a visa until December 31st. Visa is different from H-1B approval. Please understand the difference. H-1B approval, I-797 for the applicant, the approval is completely different from a visa. A visa is what is stamped in the passport and is given to you at the consulate and allows you to re-enter into the country. So the executive order bans re-entry, new re-entries. So because that's the only thing they can do with an executive order, 212F, applies only to new entries into the country. And so he's again further. Yeah,
Shravan, I think you know, she explained it's like having a car and you need a driver license. So your H-1B is approved in the country, but for you to travel into the US, you need to get a stamp on your passport, which is currently until December 2020. That's correct, Prashanthi?
That's correct.
Okay. So let's get into the dilution mechanism. What we've been thinking of, what I see on the mainstream media, and then a lot of newspapers talking about this is going to be an end game for the H-1Bs. The last couple of years, there have been RFEs, there have been denials where people had to go back and not return. We've been here for 10, 12 years, and they've had these denials, which resulted in some dilution. And now people who have traveled back, who've been working here, whose visas have expired. Now, is this some kind of a dilution plan where now we offboard another 50,000 people, and then this is going to go to an end with the H-1B visas? Or do you think this is going to come back, everything's going to be normal?
It has to come back because they cannot actually ban H-1B visas completely without it going to Congress. So they can restrict it via executive orders in a limited way for people who are re-entering, and via regulation in a more permanent way. They can do some further restrictions. They can make it so restrictive that it makes no sense to file a H-1 anymore. And so the net result will be really taking away the benefit of the H-1B. We can increase for example, they're talking about increasing the wages increasing the fee for H-1 to 20,000 for each application. That is as good as removing the H-1B benefit completely.
So what
yes, it can be diluted, but it cannot be removed completely. Now, an executive, talking about regulation, within this executive order, there is, Trump has asked the Secretary of State and the Department of Labor to look into regulation with reference to labor certifications for EB2s and EB3s and H1s, as to whether these people, are they taking away, U.S. jobs? To look into that aspect and try to come up with some restrictions so that that doesn't happen. So that's already in the works. He's already talking about it in this executive order, and he's given them 30 days to look into it. So yes, you can expect new regulation, and regulation is not immediate. It takes 12 to 18 months, but they can do a fast-track regulation, which will be immediate. But again, we have the courts, luckily, and we obviously no one is going to keep quiet.
Well,
So
since the COVID is here, the world has turned upside down, and this is kind of crazy. We have, before we get there, we have another caller, Sunil. Sunil, you're on the air.
Hi, hi. So I'm Sunil from Connecticut. So I have a question. My visa expired last month, May. So it's in due renewal, so it's in process. Do I have any impact about this proclamation?
Are you in the country or outside the country?
I'm in the country.
If you're in the United States, it doesn't affect you as long as you don't need to travel. You cannot travel.
Okay.
That's the biggest problem for people who are in the country if they don't have a valid visa. You cannot go for a visa now. But as long as you don't need to, as long as you have a valid I-94, you're fine.
Oh, okay.
No, Prashanthi, if somebody has a valid visa, let's say the visa is expiring in the next 3 months or 6 months, can they attempt to travel to a consulate, if the consulates are open, let's say Mexico, and attempt a revalidation? Is that risky? Because they have a visa to come back anyways.
Right. If they have a visa, they should not, there's no need, they're not going to again give them a new visa. They only give you a visa if it's expired. So there's no question of revalidation if you already have a visa. I don't think they're going to, you should risk again going to the consulate because there's no need to.
All right, before we get into the next topic, I'd like to, we have a special guest, as I mentioned prior to the starting of the show. Mr. Ratnakar Pandugala, he's the special, he has a double portfolio. He's been a prominent NRI in the US and has led a lot of IT companies as a leader. Now he's showing the leadership from in an official position as a special representative from Andhra Pradesh state government to North America. Welcome, Ratnakar. How are you, sir?
Thank you. I'm good. Dan, how are you?
All right, pretty good. Thanks for joining our show today. And based on your background and expertise, I wanted to bring you in and see what do you. I do have a lot of questions, but then we have a lot of callers coming in. As an NRI, before being a special rep of official rep of the AP state, now there is a chaos. And is the government in Andhra Pradesh or in India, are they geared up with any infrastructure? Because we presume that since this ban is going to continue for until right now until December 2020, but if something goes wrong, we're assuming there going to be a lot of offshoring of opportunities. So if that happens, is the government back in the state, in your state, are they ready with the infrastructure to take the load and give necessary clearances and provide job opportunities?
Yes, Dan. Let me put it this way. Irrespective of current president's this proclamation against the H-1B and other visas,
Right.
Till the year of end, AP government is already ready for the any new IT businesses here in Andhra Pradesh. We have already, you might heard about that 10th fastest and richest city in India, which is Vizag. It's going to be new executive capital. There are a lot of other companies already established there. And our young and dynamic chief minister, along with the young IT minister by name Mr. Gautam Reddy, they both are very ready to welcome for any new companies. Not only for this specific cause of the short-term ban on the H-1B visas. Yes, AP state is ready for any kind of new to make them comfortable here with infrastructure-wise. And the other part, I just want to remind you, Dan, specific to Andhra Pradesh, the state is very well ahead when specific to IT services. I mean to say staffing, RPO or BPO, resource-wise, AP is ahead of any other state in South India.
Yeah, but before I'd like to get back on this the comparison between when you stated South India. But before we get there, I have a caller. Murli, you're on the air. Murli, where are you calling from?
This is Murli. I just have a generic question. I know this proclamations and all these things is coming into place, but my question is like when my H1 is maxing out by August first week. So is there any change of status that is possible at this point of time through like L1 or something like that? Because I don't have an 140 applied and my Canada visa is initiated, but biometrics are closed, so I need to see how I can retain my status and stay here.
I think Prasanthi, the question is for you.
Right.
Please.
So leaving the country obviously is not a good idea now because you'll have to go and get a new visa. So you'll have to file a change of status most probably you could try to file a change of status to an F1 or a B2, which is a visitor's visa. And then by then, hopefully, then your Canadian visa will come through and then you'll be for Canada. But you remember, even if you get a Canadian visa, you can't come back until at least December 31st. So my suggestion would be, I'm not sure why you haven't filed an I-140 so far, but you should get to it as soon as possible. And in the interim, try to remain in the country by filing a change of status. I don't know if a H4 is possible, if your spouse is on a H1. L1 is not possible because you have to be eligible for an L1. So you should have worked for the foreign company for at least a year. So that may not be possible.
Thank you, Prasanthi. Now, I'd like to jump back into the special representative, Ratnakar Garu. When you said in South India, how is that, Andhra Pradesh state is competing with the other states, and what is the infrastructure, the planning of infrastructure? I know they've been doing a great job. The leadership has been amazing. But then what is the, do you have any numbers or anything in mind for the next upcoming years? Now, another question here to tie into this, we have had almost 2 or 3 calls from Canada. So you being a special rep for North America, which also includes Canada. So is there any plan to support the Indians living in, or the Telugus living in Canada as well, if they get in trouble?
See, yeah, definitely, Dan. We are here. The AP government and the Chief Minister suggested us in recent COVID times also to take care about the Telugus specific to Andhra Pradesh living in Canada as well as United States, if they are going through any tough times, supporting in any aspects. So, as a special representative of government of Andhra Pradesh, we took an initiative of providing them groceries, a temporary support, not a big way, to the students who are not able to support themselves. Likewise, in any other aspect, AP government and the Chief Minister are ready to support at our level best for the people specific who are not able to monetarily supported in the North America.
But I still have a topic to, a question to ask you. But before we get there, we have another caller, Anilkumar. Anilkumar, you're on the air. Where are you calling from? Anil? So, I'm sorry, Sanjay Kumar. My apologies.
Hey,
Sanjay, you're on the air.
Hey, myself Sanjeev. Okay,
Hi, Sanjeev.
I was looking for information. Something. Hi. Like actually, I was working here in a H-1B, but my wife and kid were stuck in India. They went in March, so they don't have right now the valid visa yet. But I do have a work experience. I do have a valid work authorization until 2022. So I would just like to know if at all, in meanwhile, if consulate opens, whether my dependents can go for interview or not.
Yeah, so that's unfortunately, yes, Dan. Unfortunately, this is the executive order is focusing on them, dependents as well as H1s, H4s and H1s who don't have valid visas at this point of time. So you will not be able to. I mean, they will not be able to go for a visa at least until December, 31st. But I mean, if they need to travel, it's possible that they can come on a visitor visa. That's possible because the visitor visa is not banned. It's only H4s that are banned. So it's possible they can come on they can try for a B2 visa, come in and then change status to H4. So, difficult times call for the unusual solution. Right. So that's possible.
Okay. Thanks, Sanjeev. Ratnakar and Prasanthi, before I come back, we continue the discussion, but I still have another caller, Shiva Kumar. Shiva, you're on the air. Please ask your question. A lot of immigration stuff.
Hi, Dan?
Yes.
Hello, Dan? Can you hear me?
Yes, Shiva. Yes, I can. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Dan, this is Anand. I know you, you know me. I'm from
Very well. Hey, Anand, how you doing?
How are you?
Pretty good.
Long time
I
didn't see you. Yeah, good. I'm a citizen actually. I have a question on behalf of H1 friends and family, relatives, somebody. What is the scenario like some people, H1s are expiring December 31st. So what is that scenario? The proclamation says that you cannot come until December 31st, right? So in that case, they are giving extension for that candidate another 6 months or what?
That's a good question.
So this doesn't, sorry. But this doesn't affect H1 extensions at all. It only affects people who are outside the country. It doesn't affect extensions, transfers, amendments. So yes, it's business as usual, at least for now, until they come up with a new regulation. It's business as usual for everyone who's in the country.
Anand, are they inside the country or outside the country? Anand, are you still there?
So that's the last extension for him in that case. So he lose he forever. So he cannot come to US.
No, I understand. Are they inside the US or outside? Are they in India?
Outside the US, he is in India.
Oh,
For some reason,
yes.
he went to India.
So he
Okay,
if he's in India and does not have a valid visa, then he has to wait until December 31st. After December 31st, he can apply for a visa as long as the executive order is not further extended. We don't know that. There is a chance that it might be. And also with elections.
But the scenario I explained, that's the last extension. You won't get another extension for that. So
okay, Prashanthi, I think he's talking about the recapture of the days spent outside the country. So if he has,
whatever it might be, you can file a H-1B approval for consular processing for the remaining days, or based on I-140, you can get time. Or if he doesn't have time left, then he should wait for 1 year outside the country, and he'll get a completely fresh 6 years of H-1, and then he can come in based on that. So that has nothing to do with COVID as such, the fact that his H-1 6 years is expired.
all right. Thank you, Prashanthi. Before we take the next caller, I'd like to come back to Ratnakar. Now, for people who are, they've been talking about their family stuck in India. They have their H-4 with little kids, and they can't travel, obviously, if their the visas have expired. They can't go back to the consulate. In your state, have you planned anything like a cell where you can help your own people from North America? Is there kind of a cell? Is there a phone number or something they can reach at? Or is this something you're planning? It's only been 24 hours.
Yes, exactly. We are planning something. We have two things here. We have mine is a role, and we have other services called AP NRT, Non-Residential Telugu Society, which has a call center which we provide for the worldwide Telugu's problems. I have to work with them and see for this specific situation, we need to have a support for them. We are planning it. I think within a week we will establish that.
Okay. Before we continue with the topic, I have another caller, Murali Krishna from Atlanta. You're on the air. Murali? Hello? Murali, you're on the air.
Hello. Hi. This is Murali from New Jersey.
New Jersey. I'm sorry. I thought you were from Atlanta. Okay.
No,
pretty hot. I'm in Jersey.
Good afternoon. Yeah. So right now I am on L1A and my visa got expired in March, and I have applied for the extension on January itself. With this Trump's announcement, will there be any impact or issues with my extension?
If you are in the country, no. If you are inside the country, then there is no issues. If you are outside the country and you don't have a valid visa, then there are issues. But if you are in and you're filing an L1 extension, there's no issues.
Okay, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, Murali. But Prashanthi, on these lines, before we continue with the session, I have a question. Say somebody is on H-1B and H-1B cap exempt, who also holds a valid B1B2 visa. There is no restriction for B1B2 visas, number one.
Okay.
Or somebody obtains a B1B2 visa, can they come travel on a B1 like a visitor or on business or pleasure and come here and convert it into H1?
Yes, they can. There's nothing stopping them from doing that because they're cap exempt, right? They don't have to wait for the next cap to start. So they can possibly, as I've been saying, whether it be a dependent or be a H1, they can possibly come on a visitor's visa and then convert it to a H1, file a change of status, as long as they're cap exempt and they're not subject to the cap. It's possible. Yeah. I mean, I think people are going to try it. But whether you're going to get a visitor's visa or not is a different question. They may not give you a visitor's visa.
I'm looking at the proclamation, the press release from the White House, they're talking about would this jump into any type of fraud or misrepresentation if somebody has traveled on a B2 visa, then they held an H-1B in the past, and then they do the change of status. What would be the implications if somebody has attempted to do so? Because the focus is
Right.
to
So,
retain American jobs, right? Bring
right.
jobs back to
So
Americans by.
right, but we always have to use the loopholes that are in the law, and that's exactly what we're doing. But remember, if you come on a B2, there's an intent issue,
Okay.
which means that you have to come into the country for the purpose that you've stated
Okay.
when you apply for your visa. So when
Okay.
if you say that I'm coming to visit my family, it makes complete sense because their spouse and kids are stuck here while they're in India. So and 6 months is a long time to be separated from your family. But as soon as you come into the country, if you apply for the change of status to H1, maybe they won't approve it because they'll say your entry itself is unlawful because there's an intent issue.
Okay.
You stated a wrong intent when you applied for your visa.
All right. Let's
Usually
hold the topic. Prashanthi, let's hold the topic. We'll discuss about this in our next weekly show. And before I get back into Ratnakar on another topic, I have a caller from I think New Jersey. His name is New Jenny. You're on the call. Are you from Jersey or I misheard? Is it Mumbai? Hello? You're on the air. Can you please speak up, please? Hello? All right, you can try back if you are being on hold. I'll try to take as many calls as possible. If you have to hold for a minute, please hold because we are discussing important topics here. So please try back those numbers. We are flashing those US and India numbers on the screen. So please continue, keep calling if you don't mind the hold. I apologize for any longer holds there. But then, Ratnakar, we were talking about the cell. So I got off a little bit with, so when is this, since this has been 24 hours, I'm sure you guys are pretty fast. So this is only for people who are getting in trouble in the US, or, there might be some problems tomorrow in Canada. They might be from other countries. So is this going to be a standard cell on a long-term scale that you are planning to set up?
We have a separate continuously monitoring
APNRT.
department, APNRT, for the specific purpose of this situation where a lot of questions and immigration questions and all, we want to keep a separate one, Dan, for now. For this particular instance, see, people have a lot of questions. Somebody on H1, their dependents can go back. So we want to also, reach out from our side with our experience, like attorneys like Prasanthi or somebody else, and find help them. Help them more clarity, because sometimes people will come up with multiple, suggestions from multiple people, multiple sources, and we are not sure. And though, as you know, I am in this business, IT business, specific to visas from past 20 years, I know up to 80%, but the situation is totally different, the way it came, and, so we have to handle through attorneys only. So for that purpose, our primary motivation would be making them talking to the attorneys available and, clear their doubts. And if their family or dependents need any support from here, up to what extent we can do, and is it in our limits? These kind of things we are still working out. So probably in a week we will come up with a solution, Dan.
All right. I'd like to jump back.
I'm sorry, if I could ask Ratnakar a question. With reference to advocacy, is there anything you can do on a government level, from government to government, to try to make sure that these H-1B restrictions are somehow, so that
I was going to ask that.
government understands, because you have a relationship.
Yeah, this is the one. I am at state level. Just today, I got interact with the CM office, and anything what we need to is we need to work with external affairs. So our Honorable Chief Minister Garu is ready to put any kind of request to happen through them towards any level of for the US consulates. Yeah, it's not at state level. I mean AP state level. We got to go through external affairs to the central government.
But then, Ratnakar, the present chief minister being the strongest, that's what Prasanthi was trying to understand. If would there be any advocacy into the PM or external affairs office? In other words, influencing to help our community who is getting into trouble last 3 years, and this is the biggest trouble, which is until December, and we do not know what is going to happen after December 20.
Yes.
So before I get there,
I have answered.
Yeah.
Yes, I have put a request for the CM office to meet them in person and explain them in detail about the general troubles which we go through. So I want to request my chief minister to put a special note and letter to Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi ji, to request, first of all, to reconsider President Trump on his proclamation of this new H-1B visas and other visas temporary ban, as well to see, easy way to help specific to, because more, the IT, as you are aware, more percentage of the people and IT are now dominated by Andhra Pradesh people, Telugu people. So what kind of support he can get through the external affairs? I'm trying for the appointment, and because of this COVID situation here in Andhra Pradesh, special situation, and now it came, it is tough to get hold of his appointment. But I'm trying as a high priority to see what best he can achieve with his strengths through the central government of India.
Okay, Prashanthi, or before I get there, once again, I have another caller. Now this is Chiranjeev from Hyderabad. Chiranjeev, you're on the air. Please ask your question.
Oh, hi all. So I have a question here. So I have valid I-140, but however, I was in India past 1 year, and my company is ready to file my extension under HNSE, cap exempt. So whether this impacts my HNSE as well, or it's only for H-1B new visas?
So yeah,
we'll be talking about this.
Right. So yes,
please.
if you do not have a H-1 visa right now, whether you've already been on a H-1 or you've never been on a H-1, the main criteria that they're looking at is whether you have a H-1 visa right now or not. If you need to apply for a new H-1 visa, you're not going to be able to do that until December 31st.
Okay, but
so that's
So I think I'd like to make this very clear. We have repetitive questions on the same topic, but then if you don't have a valid visa stamping on your passport, you cannot enter until December 2020. Am I right, Prasanthi?
Yes, you can file for your H-1 extension with USCIS, and you can wait for it to get approved and keep the approval with you. But you can't actually go and get a visa until after December 30th.
Okay. I'm sorry to keep Ratnakar on hold, but then I have another caller. We have a lot of callers from Canada today. Vivek from Canada. Vivek, what city in Canada are you from? You're on the air.
Toronto.
Toronto. Yeah, please ask your question.
Yeah. So my question is basically, does this proclamation impact TN visas? Does it impact? I'm a Canadian citizen, and if I want to basically go for TN visa, does it impact me in any way? That's my question. I have another question, which I can ask later probably, but that's on behalf of my friend. But my primary question is on TN visa.
All right, thank you.
You said TN, correct? TN, he said.
Yeah, TN. Yeah, TN visa.
Yeah, and I'm surprised, but they didn't include TN, which is good. They didn't include the TN visa in the category because that is a work visa, and they were trying to restrict all work visas. But I presume they thought if they went that much volume of TNs coming in, I don't know exactly why they didn't do it. I'm presuming that's what it is. But if you're on a TN visa, you can come into the country. There is no issue. It's only for H's, L's, and J's.
Okay. So you heard that. There's no problem for TN visas. And also, I think E3 visas, Australian citizens.
E3 also, correct.
Yeah, but then definitely I think H, the dependents, L's their dependents, and J's their dependents. So they are in trouble. And I'd like to come back to Ratnakar for a quick, I think we're running out of time now, but then before we, now you talked about, I know there is a problem to set up appointments going into external affairs, but how, since you understand the problem, you've been an NRI yourself and you have run the IT businesses here, you understand. That's why I wanted to invite you on my show. Now you are one of the persons who seriously understands this problem. Now, how serious this is for any governmental agency or a government like state of Andhra Pradesh, how serious this matter is, or it's just that there is something 24, 48 hours and we just forget it.
Oh, no, it's not like that. See, it's any people problem belongs to Andhra Pradesh. The current government or the chief minister will take it as very serious. We know, the fact is there are more Andhrites or Telugites are affected for any visa or any problems in the United States because they are more in the number. We are always, government keeps an eye on them. So definitely we are ready to support them and ready to support them in all aspects to, make sure them they are comfortable and safe, whether it's a visa or anything else. Yes.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of news items where during the COVID and then the services you have personally done in Canada as well and the US, where you've been helping a lot of students who got in trouble with their visas and then they don't have food to eat. They had problems with accommodation. And thank you. We've got messages on our groups about, we've got emails from many of them who said, there has been some help and a lot of help, but then I would like to request you to continue helping these people in the next 60 or 90 days or until December. We don't want to see the doomsday, but then hope we get out of this and everybody's back to what it was prior to COVID. So let's come back to Prashanthi, but then we are running out of time. So Prashanthi, before we close the show today, is there anything you would like to specifically explain to our viewers today? And they're definitely frustrated. There has been a lot of anxiety. There is a lot of chaos, which different questions on WhatsApp groups. As an attorney, what is your final word until the December? Since they said definitely it's December, is there anything that we can do?
So I just wanted to finish what I was talking about the B2s, because that's actually, you hit on something there. That might be a solution. So coming on a B2 and then changing to a H1. So that is possible, but you cannot change immediately to a H1. I think wait for 60 days or 90 days and then file for a change of status to a H1. It's a different story whether you'll get the B2 or not, but some people already have a B2 stamped in their passport. You can definitely travel, using that B2 which is stamped. On humanitarian grounds, you can apply for a B2 visa because your family is here. So that's something definitely to think about.
I'd like to request you. I'm sorry to interrupt there. I'd like to request, since there have been callers, I'd like to extend the session for probably another 30 minutes. If you people are okay, we'd like to take these callers. Are you okay with that?
I'm fine.
All right. Ratnakar, are you okay to stay on the call for maybe 10, 15 more minutes?
It's already 1 a.m. here. As you know, I'm in India.
I'm so sorry.
I got to rush to CM office tomorrow. I'm in Vijayawada, capital right now, because of the situation to get some letters and all. It's too late, as you know. So I'm sorry. Thanks for having me the call, Prashanthi. Thank you so much.
I'd like to get an ending statement before you get off.
Sure, definitely. What I would like to tell, after looking into this short time, after my opinion and my thing is, not a lot to worry, because I think Prashanthi should correct me. It is not a problem who has the visa in the United States. It is not a problem who has a valid H1, if not the visa in the United States. It is not a problem for the people who has valid visa and traveling in India. The only thing, people who travel to India and does not have a valid visa cannot come back to United States till 12/31. Anyway, due to this COVID, the people who has a papers here were not able to stamp it in March. So I see not a big problem for the people. Biggest problem. There could be a lot of chaos and some kind of misinformation, confusion around it.
Right.
But I personally feel if this new proclamation, what done by President Trump, ended at 12:31 and move on after the election as usual, I don't think personally it is a big problem. Nobody should take. I do understand people who are on travel to India, came here for revalidation, have the apartments, homes, or families, or some other assets to take care about there, would be in little bit trouble. But it is what it is. We are in COVID situation, and unfortunately we have to continue for some more months. But I personally feel it's nothing to panic. Due to this slowdown, I mean, these job losses, and we leaving the country, not going. We have experienced it. People 2001, 9/11 times, and 2007 mortgage deep. We've gone through them. So I don't think it's a huge problem as people are thinking. I think things will settle down with the details, explanation. People like you are helping a lot. Taking attorneys like Shanti into calls, clarifying more. Personally, I suggest my people say Indians or people belongs to from Andhra Pradesh, not to much worry. Things will get settled down soon.
Yeah, Ratnakar, thank you for being very positive, and it's definitely motivational, even personally to me. And I hope we've had almost 20 minutes discussion on. If you need support, I think the AP government's websites. You can reach out to
one thing I want to add on to this is now, see, you and me know that in long run, early 2000s, we don't have many opportunities in India. Now, even temporarily, somebody come back from US also, there are a lot of job opportunity here, irrespective of this COVID situation, because we run the company still here offshore. We do have, a lot of talent requirement here. So I suggest to people not to panic about this current situation. Hope after this election year, President Trump or the American new government will change this policy and people move on that.
All right. Thank you, Ratnakar. Thanks for coming on to my show. Have a good night.
Thank you very much for having me, and especially thanks to Prasanthi for giving a lot of clarity for the people who are in a difficult situation.
Okay.
Namaste, sir.
Prasanthi will continue for another 30 minutes. I do have callers. Thanks for standing by. I have Rudra Reddy. Would you like to take a break? We'll take a call, take a quick break, and then come back. But I have a call. Would you like to take this call?
Sure.
We have Rudra Reddy from New Jersey. Rudra Reddy, you're on the air. Please ask your question.
Hello, ma'am. This is Rudra Reddy. I'm calling from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania state. My question is regarding H4 visa. My wife has H4 visa stamped in her passport till 2021, but her passport expired by this September 1st. So her I-94 is given till September 1st. So and I have Canada visa, tourist visa. So my plan is to go to Canada and that correct I-94 gets corrected. So my question is, with having H4 visa stamp, am I allowed to go to Canada and come back to correct I-94?
Yeah, that's right. I think that's a good plan. Rather than filing an extension in the US, you can travel, but please remember with COVID and flights, and I don't want you to get stuck outside the country. So that's a decision that you have to make, whether you want to file a change of status. I mean, do you want to file an extension of status within the US? It's a simple I-539 form. Or you want to leave the country and then come back in, that's a decision that you have to make. Okay. I'm just worried about, the flights and, disease and stuff like that. But yes, technically speaking, if you have if your wife has a valid H4 visa, she can leave the country and come back. If she has an extended passport at this time, she will get the I-94 for the duration of your H1.
Okay, I hope that answered the question, Rudra. Prasanthi, we have another caller from Texas, but then, viewers out there, we will take just calls next 15-20 minutes. We are still here. So please keep calling. See those numbers on the screen, flashing on the screen. Prasanthi agreed to take a few more questions for the next 20 minutes. Now we have a caller from Texas. I didn't get the name right. You're on the air. Please ask your question.
Hey, hi.
Hello.
This is Raghav from Texas. I have a valid H-1B visa. My wife went to India in March and they don't have a valid H-4 visa. So they can apply for B2 visa. And my second question is when there is any chances to open a US embassy by next month?
Prasanthi, did you get that?
Yeah, I think he got cut off though, but yes, so basically, since your spouse doesn't have a valid H-4 visa, she cannot come into the country, but you were asking if we could use a B2 visa instead. Yes, they can go and apply for a B2 visa. It's a different question whether they'll get it or not. Yes, you can apply. And the other one, I think, question was whether the consulates will be open or not. Consulates are opening up in a staggered fashion. They've been sending us emails that they're starting to open up this month. But again, it depends on the country conditions as well, and depends on where exactly the consulates are located in which state and what the situation is there. So yes, they are opening up in a staggered fashion.
Okay, thank you. But before we take the next caller, on the proclamation on Section 4, you see that they said within 30 days of June 24, 2020, and every 60 days. So is there any possibility that this can reverse and, things we might see some sunshine in the next 30 days or 60 days?
It's possible because they're going to continuously review it every 30 days. So it's possible they might review it and then see that the economic situation is not as bad as they thought it was, and they might reverse it. It really depends on what the purpose is behind this proclamation. If it is political, then there is no advantage for them to reverse it. But if it is genuinely intended to, turn around the economy of the U.S. They should be able to see that restricting H-1B does not in any way help the economy of the U.S. But if they realize that, and if they're genuine in their intentions, then yes, they should. It's possible that they'll turn it around. But if it's an election thing, then most probably they won't. So it really depends on what the intent was behind publication of this proclamation.
But do you think this is going to have a detrimental effect on the economy, number one, and then the supply? I know there is a problem now, 90 days, 120 days, due to COVID-19. As we were discussing, there has not been a great recession or some kind of a hit into the tech industry where the H-1Bs are entirely dependent, or vice versa, with about 5 or 10% in other areas like doctors or healthcare workers, fashion models. But then, is this going to be a boon for countries like India, where the jobs will be outsourced offshore to India? Or this is going to be a boon to people who are already here on an H-1B visas, who might get more remuneration because there is a problem with the supply in the coming days?
Right. So with IT, as you know, Dan, there's always a problem with supply. There's always a problem with getting good talent in certain technologies or experienced people. And experienced people cannot come via OPT to H1. They can only come via H1 directly. There is a shortage of experienced people in the US with reference to the tech industry. Most often, as you know, requirements don't get met and jobs are moved overseas. Yes, so for India, it is definitely, from what I'm hearing, it is advantageous to a certain extent for India, in the sense that more projects will open up there. It's inevitable. But if you remove the supply of good talent here, they will simply move the jobs offshore. They're not going to completely close the jobs because, automation is needed, technology is needed. That's not going to go away. It's just that they'll find a different place, to find this talent. So yeah, it's an advantage for India and other countries. Canada has a huge advantage because they have been quoting our tech people as if there's no tomorrow. They've been doing this for the last couple of years. They've been talking about how tolerant their society is, how easy their immigration is. They've come to New York. I've met them in New York also, the consulate, Canadian consulate, and they give talks at all these big organizations. So yeah, Canada is going to benefit from this. Already it has. The Canadian universities have benefited a great deal.
I know you're a counsel to Indian consulate in New York, and then is there, you also have any type of services in Canada, or you're specific to the United States?
I'm in the US. I do US immigration.
US immigration. Okay. Now, let's go back into the, what is the, why H-2B visas? I know India is not impacted. I don't think the H-2B is given to Indian nationals. Am I correct?
That's correct. Not many people apply from India for H-2Bs. So it's seasonal workers and agricultural workers. And this is summer, so this is the time when, in fact, H-2Bs file. H-2Bs makes more sense, but even H-2Bs, obviously there is not enough people, to pick the apples or whatever for the agriculture, and that's why they have the whole H-2B visa. And it's always been considered to be very important because they don't have enough local workers to do this job. But I would think at least that it makes a little bit more sense when compared to stopping highly qualified people from coming into the US, because there's definitely no US citizens who can take up those jobs. They're not enough at least. There may be fresh graduates who are coming now who are passing out of college, but even then, even those people, it's not enough. A lot of our young people don't even now go to tech, tech institutes. They mostly prefer business or humanities. So there's still a dearth of people, both in the agricultural field, everywhere. So really, none of this makes sense.
Okay, I do have a topic here before we end the session. Now, what happens to these students who have applied, picked in the lottery with the registration process, and students who are on CPT specifically, where there's trouble with the change of status, and if they don't get the change of status, let's say they get an approval in the next 50 days, they filed a premium processing case, they don't get a change of status, and they get into trouble with their F1 visa, and they can't go travel with the COVID situation. Even if they travel, they can't come back. It's kind of a mess. So how do they handle this mess? Do they just stay here unlawfully, or go find another course, get into another course with having an H-1B approved H-1B visa, which is of no use? So how do they break through this mess and get something where they can be happy?
So the change of status from F1 to H1, if they get a H1 approved, they can start working on the H1. So there is no issue really for them.
No, my question is, what if there's no change of status approved?
If the change of status doesn't approve, then it's for consular processing, because they may have, and that happens often, right, because they may have violated their F1 status. Maybe they didn't work on OPT when they were supposed to, or they didn't work for the entire duration of time that they were supposed to. In that situation, we usually, even without thinking, just do consular processing. We don't even bother to respond to the RFC for change of status. We just say, okay, let him do consular processing. And it gets approved, and then they go and get their visa and come back in. So in this situation, that won't be possible. We will not be able to opt for consular processing even if they're out of status. So we have to try as much as possible to respond to those RFCs for the change of status and show that they're in status. If they are not, then the H1 will get approved, and it will get approved for consular processing. Remember, they don't have to leave. They can continue on an F1 status as long as they're maintaining their status. Take another course, do something to maintain their status, and then they can leave the country maybe next year and then get a H1 visa and then come. So everything is being delayed right now by 6 months.
But what if they overstayed? Say, for example, they can get into another course, the F1 visa has expired, or the I-20 has expired, and they haven't joined a course because to join a course they have to pay tons of fees, tons of money. And what is the regulation that somebody overstayed to be in a safe zone? What is the
So you
time
shouldn't
frame? Say, a year, 2
So I
years?
don't think, yeah, you shouldn't overstay even for a day, because then you're putting your status in jeopardy. But there's something called unlawful presence, whereby if your overstay is less than 6 months, then there is no unlawful presence against you. So if you leave, you'll be able to come back on a fresh visa. It's possible. But if there is unlawful presence, then by law, they cannot give you a visa even if they want to, because that whole unlawful presence comes into play then.
Okay.
So you're barred for another 10 years from coming into the US.
So have you seen, but the other option for them, as we discussed in our previous shows, do they still have an option to file the B2 visa? And have you lately seen any approvals post-COVID-19?
So yes, they can definitely, that's always an option. That's a fallback, the B2 visa. And they can file it and get it for 6 months. We haven't seen any approvals because the B2 visa takes more than 6 months. The B2 extends. When you file an application, it takes more than 6 months. And now it will take longer because you need to get fingerprints done, and no fingerprints are being done even now. So it's going to take a long time. So as long as you file it and you have not overstayed beyond the date that you have requested, you're fine. You can just remain in the country. But of course, you can't work or go to school.
So is there an alternative to the B2 visa? Apart from the student visa, is there anything else? Is there an alternative that they can plan?
Not unless they have a spouse who's on a H1, then they could do a H4. But it's pretty much the catch-all visa is the, visitor visa.
You said
so
catch-all. Is there a catch-all visa?
A catch-all, yes. It's a catch-all. So it catches all the other visas. So if for someone, nothing else applies, then that will apply. You can apply for it.
Okay. Now, someone was asking me today if they already have, I think we spoke about this a little bit, but then assuming the people who are in the country who have valid visa stamping, I'd like to reiterate this once again. They have a valid visa for a month, and then they have, I'm talking about the validity of the visa on their passport, then they have an H-1B extension. If they travel to a consulate, if they're open in either Mexico for a revalidation purpose or to Canada, is that still, do you still recommend that?
So if they go to the consulate and ask for a revalidation, and if it gets denied, and if their visa is still valid, they can come into the country. They can come back into the country, and or if they have an advance parole, they can use advance parole to come back into the country.
Yeah. 1 second. By the way, if you are still waiting to give us a call, please do give us a call. We'll run this session for about another 5 minutes. We've been doing this for over an hour now. We'll take calls for the next 5 minutes and before we end the session, Prasanthi. So viewers out there, if you have a question, please dial those numbers on the screen. We'll still take the calls. So we do have a caller. Prasanthi, would you like to take that call? It's Prashant from Hyderabad. Prashant, you're on the air. Prashant, you there? Hello? Prashant, you're on the air. All right, looks like we have a problem. Prashant, you would like to, can you please try to call in once again? We'll take the call right in. So we were talking about if the visa is denied and they still have a valid visa for a month, are they in trouble?
No, they can come back. Even if it's for a month, they can come back on that valid visa. So there's no issue. And then they can come back and then extend their status in the US.
So since the consulates are not open in India, and then assuming the consulates, I heard, they're open in Australia, but for revalidation purpose, is that they just have to go to, they can go to any consulate in the world, or is there a restriction they have to go to a specific consulate, like to start with from India, and then they go to Mexico or Canada?
They can go to any consulate as long as that consulate is able to verify, their educational degree. That's the main issue usually. And at every consulate now there is a security check. So you have to be willing to stay there, for a month or however long it takes. If there is, it goes into administrative processing, then it could take much longer. So since it's not your country and you may not have the support and place to stay, that may logistically may not make sense, to stay for a long time. So that's something you have to keep in mind. But otherwise, consular shopping is allowed. You're allowed to go wherever you want to get a consulate, to get a visa.
Okay, before we, I still have another question, but I have a caller, Raju from Visakhapatnam in India, Vizag. Raju, you're on the air. Please ask your question.
Hello, ma'am. My name is Raju. I'm having one question.
Yes, please. Raju, please go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, I'm having a valid H-1B, but I have to go to the consulate and get my H-1B stamp. So, is it possible? Will the consulate will be open?
Unfortunately, consulate might be open, but they're not going to take in your application because the executive order applies to you because you don't have a visa right now.
Yeah,
and they're not going to entertain any new H-1 visas at the consulate until December 31st.
Okay, we have to wait until for 6 months, right?
Correct, yes.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Raju. Thank you for that question. Now, before we will take a few more minutes, before we end that session. Now, I think there's still been a little confusion with if somebody has a valid visa, right? Which is valid, let's say, for the next 6 months. They can freely travel. Let's say H-1B or H-4, L-1, L-2. Is that a possibility?
Yes, absolutely. If you have a valid visa, nobody is going to restrict you. You can, travel back and forth as long as the flights are available to travel. There's no issue.
So, as of June 24th, if they've had a valid visa and they would continue to keep it valid, even for a day or a month, as soon as they enter, they're okay to come back in. But people who are stuck in India, even though they were here on an H-1 for say 6 years, 3 years, extension beyond 6 years after getting a 140 approved, if they don't have a sticker, a stamp on their passport, they cannot come in and they will not be allowed to even apply for a visa. Is that true?
That is correct. That is correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Executive order is about.
That's what the whole thing is about. I mean, they have carved out some exceptions, but the exceptions are for medical workers, doctors, researchers. Also, they are saying that if there are children that are aging out, remember this applies to people who are applying for a green card also, they will make exceptions for them and they will process their case even though, it's an exception to the executive order basically. So children who are aging out.
I'd like to take, thank you. I'd like to take one last call. I have Prashant from somewhere in the US. Prashant, you're on the air. Where are you calling from? What state? What part of the US?
Yeah, I'm calling from California.
Hi, Prashant.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. First thing is, I have a friend whose H-1B is picked this slot and it's got approved, but he's presently in India. And before the H-1, he also has a B1B2, like a visiting visa. So I know the H-1B starts from October. So because he has an approval once the consulate's open, if he goes for H-1B stamping, would this present H-1B travel ban would impact on his stamping? That's my first question.
That's who it impacts. So yes.
So I think he already has a B1B2 visa, like visiting visa, like not like a business visa, like on vacation visa. If he can come on that visa and he can go for a change of status because he already has an H-1B approved, maybe sometime in October, after October.
Right. Good question. Good question. But unfortunately, he's subject to the cap because he has never actually worked on his H-1 visa. You have to actually work on your H-1 visa not to be subject. It's not enough if it's just approved. So unfortunately, he won't. That's a good idea if it worked, but it will not work because of the way the law is.
So he cannot apply for visa status after coming to US. Oh, sorry.
Right. Yeah. Please go ahead, Prashant.
Yeah, sorry. And also, I have one more question. As present H4 people who are in India, I similarly have one more friend, like one of my colleagues in US, and his wife went to India in H4, and also they have a kid who's a citizen, and now once everything gets open, she don't have a stamping yet on the visa. So can she apply for a B1 and come back and then go for change of status on H4? Because she has an H4
yes, she can. She can
but not.
Right. She can. Right. She can come. She can apply for a B2. B2 is a visitor visa. B1 is a business. It's given for business. Yeah, so she can apply for B1B2 Visa and say that she needs to accompany her child who's a minor and the father is in the US. And then wait maybe for 90 days, as I was saying, because otherwise there might be an intent problem, and then file for a change of status, to a H4. That is possible.
Okay, but she already has a H4 approval for 3 years, so even still, is that only thing they need to do?
Yeah, but the H4 approval is not going to be meaningful and is not valid.
Okay, so
when you enter on a B2, it's a B2.
I think Prashant, they have to reach out to the attorney. I think this is more of a personal question. So before we, her phone numbers and the email is flashing on the screen. I think this is more of a personal matter. This is a public forum right now on the air. Before, I would like to take one last call. Sakshi TV wants to ensure our viewers are happy. And this is a pretty long 90-minute session. Thank you, Prashanthi. There's one more caller, Sanjeev from New York City. That's where you're from.
Yeah, hello.
Sanjeev, you're on the air.
Yeah. Hi. Hello. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Loud and clear.
Yeah. My question is so generally, if for Canada, for entering to Canada or Mexico, we have although our visa is expired, visa stamp is expired. If you have we have an automatic revalidation process to enter into Mexico and Canada and come back within 30 days, right? Although we does not have any visa stamp in the passport. So can this be worked out? I mean, generally, if I want to go to Canada and come back quickly.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So that's interesting, right? So you can even people who are in India can use it. So is it possible? Let's think about it. Is it possible for a person who? Yeah, I don't think so. But in your case, as long as you're not going to Canada for the purposes of getting a visa, you do not require a visa to come back to the US. You can come back using your H1 approval. We all know that, Canada and Mexico. So yes, it's possible as long as you're not going for a visa. You're just going for travel or
pleasure.
leisure.
Let's say somebody goes to Cancun, Mexico. Can they still come back?
Yeah, as long as they're just going for travel and they're not going to the consulate. If you're going to the consulate, then you cannot come back on that same I-94. You have to get a visa and come back. But if you're not going to the consulate, your purpose is only to travel, then you can come back on that same I-94. You don't need a visa. But this may not work for people in India. I was just thinking, will it work if there's someone in India who doesn't have a visa right now, travels to Canada, and then is able to enter into the country via that? I don't think so, because they were not previously in the US. They're traveling from India, so it's not work. Trying to find out all possible solutions in this situation to see if there is some relief or something can be done, some loophole.
Okay. Now, if you have any experiences or you have something to share or you have a question, you can reach us out, follow us at Facebook at Sakshi TV USA and our Twitter handle at Sakshi TV USA or on LinkedIn at Sakshi TV USA. So you could send us a message. We'll try to get this out into, if you have an experience to share, if you've traveled and this can be helpful to any of our viewers, that is most welcome. And every week we have this session show with Prashanthi Reddy. She's our house attorney, 6 p.m. Today, since we have done a special show, we will put it on our Facebook page. If we're going to continue with another show tomorrow, we pushed it backwards to talk about the executive order and trying to clarify all the questions that you may have and the confusion. I hope it's a little bit of relief. And I think if you're in India, take a break, have some fun. But then, Prashanthi, we have a few more minutes. I'd like to, is there an ending statement that you'd like to make in reference to this bill, the executive order? My apologies. Now, is there anything else that is going to come like another missile?
So the one thing that we didn't touch upon is within this executive order, there is also a shout out to the Secretary of State of the Department of Labor to look into the possibility of further regulation. This is not an executive order. They're asking for regulation, which is permanent, pretty much. With reference, they want to do a study on how H-1Bs, the labor certificate is affecting U.S. citizens and if it is taking away their jobs. And if they think that it is, then they want to put further restrictions on H-1s and, the labor cert process. I'm a little worried about that. They've been given 30 days to review and come back with comment. But if the elections, if the Republicans don't win the elections and everything is, everything will be reversed. So there's so much going on right now that there's no need to lose heart. It's just uncertainty, and uncertainty causes anxiety. But there is so much going on, and there's so many unknowns that I wouldn't look at this. It's a step back in the sense that in the last 35 years,
Right.
no
All right,
restrictions
Prashanthi, I think we are running against time. I'd like to close this session now. You've been very patient last 90 minutes explaining the nitty-gritties of the entire this whole mess. My viewers out there, please keep watching the show every Wednesday, and keep watching Sakshi TV. This is Dan Anand with Attorney Prashanthi Reddy signing off.